is believability. You know, will they believe? If they have never had that positive experience, will they believe the hour, the time, and the moment has come? When the government advocates for this platform, then things change. So don't leave it to the private sector. Be part of the solution. It was not enough to put the platform together. The issue is, how do we get citizens to be fully included? An endorsement of government would be central. Let me close by saying that this transaction will heavily embassies or diplomacy. First, as turning our economic hubs to economic hubs. Diplomacy is very good, but it never puts food on the table. But economic activities put food on the table. And truly what we really need is to enhance the quality of lives in Africa. So it's really a very important step to give. But Felix, as you do this, I would like also to say there are trade sitting to a past chairman of our National Chamber of Commerce. If they could also have access to the link, then they could mobilize their members on the platform. I happen to be the chairman of the Commonwealth, East and Central Africa chapter. We have 54 Commonwealth chambers across the world with millions of members to these chambers. We could populate traders and business people on these platforms if you opened to them. And because it's about trade, the government just become a guarantor of policy and a regulator of markets, and just allow the traders to do what they do best, trading. And with those words, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mwangi, for also see what that. I'd like to invite our next keynote speaker, His Excellency Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs in the Republic of Kenya. Dr. Mudavadi has held multiple level portfolios over a 3-decade career in public service. In his please just sit down. Let me give you your flowers, as the Gen Zs like to say. In his current role, Dr. Mudavadi has overseen the restructuring of Kenya's diplomatic footprint, shifting emphasis to prioritize commercial diplomacy, diaspora investment, and multilateral engagement. Let's give His Excellency Dr. Mudavadi a warm round of applause.
Well, thank you for that. My good friends, James Mwangi, my PS is my friend. In case you friends like Moreu, we grew up together in Kangemi when we were young. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go straight into the business of the day. Not only Kenya's priority, but Africa's collective determination to turn integration into shared prosperity. This gathering is about more than the launch of the 2 digital platforms. It is about redefining as Africans organize ourselves to trade, investment, and grow together in a rapidly changing world. For decades, Africa has pursued unity in vision and solidarity in purpose. We have built strong continental institutions reaching frameworks such as the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have harmonized policies and reduced barriers. Yet, despite these achievements, of African traders, manufacturers, and investors remained challenging. Too often, opportunities are identified but not realized. Promising engagements stall and potential partnerships fade. Transactions take too long, cost too much, or fail to yield the expected results altogether. This is the execution gap we must confront. The question of more facilitate trade and investment in many ways. Economy and personal networks. Reliable data, and institutional memory that outlive. That is why today's launch is significant. Biashara Link and Deal House introduce a new model of economic policy, one that is digital by design, results-oriented, and anchored in accountability. Biashara Link provides a common platform for capturing and organizing opportunities. It transforms informal leads into institutional assets. And investment prospects are documented, monitored, and pursued systematically. Deal House completes the chain. It brings credibility, financing, and transaction support. Execution, ensuring that serious business receives serious follow-through. Together, Biashara Link and Deal House turn diplomacy into delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have heard, global markets are changing rapidly. Supply chains are shifting, competition for investment is rising, and technology is transforming trade. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we have committed ourselves to build regional value chains and expanding intra-Africa trade. But integration must move beyond policy into practical, commercially viable systems. These platforms help us to do exactly that. They open access for small and medium enterprises, empower women and youth, reduce transaction risks, and build trust across borders, making African trade more inclusive and competitive. For Kenya, this initiative reflects our commitment to modernizing our foreign service and aligning diplomacy with development. We are equipping our missions with digital tools, financial partnerships, and private sector expertise to deliver measurable economic outcomes. While we begin with our missions, our ambition is continental. We see this as a shared infrastructure for African cooperation, and we invite our sister countries to join us on this journey. Let us appreciate Real Sources Africa and Equity Bank for their partnership and Pan-African vision, which demonstrates the power of collaboration between government, finance, and enterprise. We also acknowledge Conrad, Addis, which has been a consistent partner in supporting dialogue and interventions that are not abstract but anchored in institutional strengthening and delivery. The future of African diplomacy, not only in conference halls, but in markets, factories, ports, and digital platforms such as this. The success of these initiatives will be measured in completed deals, jobs created, and enterprises grown. If we do so, Africa's next chapter will be written in performance and not promises. So before I just step off this, let me really acknowledge Conrad. We presented a sessional paper for Kenya, that is sessional paper number 1 of the year 2025, where we went through a process of participation and presented to our parliament for the first time a sessional paper where we got parliament to endorse our foreign policy and our diplomatic engagements. I want to admit that, to acknowledge that Conrad worked with us in this journey. So he's not coming just at the tail end. He was part of a process which allowed us to really review our foreign policy and have an opportunity looking at it from a different perspective. So these are indeed some of the results. The second thing I just want to point out is that for Africa, we have no option. Those of us have had some background around matters finance. There are some predictability, integrity, credibility, consistency, and the biggest culprit seemed to be Africa. Whenever they talked of credibility, they would say it's lacking. Whenever they would say predictable policies, those policies are not predictable. Africa was a culprit. Whenever they would say reliability, Africa was a culprit. So the question now is, in the sudden geopolitical environment, whose policies are really unpredictable? Whose policies are now not consistent? Where can you get a voice that says, like James Mwangi here, that when he gives you his word, take it to the bank? Are we in a position today, globally, to be able to say that with this policy, with this innovation, with this decision, you can take it to the bank? I believe this platform is going to help us answer those questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me stop there, because to be predictable and credible, and that means I should not say too much, but to wish and recognize the entrepreneurship of all those who have been involved. Thank you so much for bringing us here. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I would like to welcome back on stage our PS Singoe, to come and formally welcome our chief guest this evening.
Without further ado, let's put our hands together for the dynamic, visionary leader of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, His Excellency Dr. Wamkele Mene. Please.
Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary Mudavadi, Principal Secretary, it is really a pleasure to be with you tonight. I had the opportunity to visit Real Sources in Nairobi a few weeks ago, and in the room, the company comprises people who are all younger than me. And I am not an old person. But what that demonstrated to me is the future of our continent, as well as the intersection between trade agreements and the future. So this agreement, this AfCFTA, is not necessarily about the past, where our continent comes from, the fragmentation, the divisions, the 55 visas, the cost of transport and logistics, matters that continue to constrain our continent. In my opinion, we have within our reach the tool, the instrument to tackle these challenges. In a few days' time, our heads of states will adopt the remaining legal instruments that comprise the agreement establishing the AfCFTA. The annexes, as the lawyers call them, the annexes on intellectual property rights. When our heads of states do that, that will mark a very significant milestone of conclusion of all of the legal instruments that the heads of states directed that we negotiate to create a commercially viable single market. This will be the first time since the establishment of the WTO in 1994 in Marrakesh that 50 countries have come together to agree on rules for common market, for investment, for industrial development, and most importantly, in the two protocols that all of us as Africans should be particularly proud of, the protocol on women and youth in trade and the protocol on digital trade. As the world is moving ever closer to the precipice of fragmentation, supply chain disruptions, increased trade protectionism, increased investment protectionism, increased industrial development protectionism, our continent is moving the opposite direction. We're liberalizing intra-Africa trade, we're liberalizing intra-Africa investment. We have a protocol on women and youth in trade, which asserts that our continent must move beyond aspirations for young people and women to be at the fore of Africa's economy, that our continent must codify these aspirations into legally binding obligations, which has been done through the protocol on women and youth in trade. Second, the protocol on digital trade, on which the launch today should be the bedrock, is too a forward-looking instrument that demonstrates the capacity of our continent to seize the opportunity of the digital economy. It is, of course, very apt that the government of Kenya, Equity Bank, and Real Sources are at the fore of this cutting-edge intersection between commercial diplomacy, digitization, and trade, because M-Pesa was born in Kenya. So we expect nothing less from Kenya than leadership in digital innovation. As I mentioned, the protocol on digital trade will provide a very strong basis for this technological innovation that is being launched today. The protocol is a framework that significantly reduces intra-Africa barriers to digital trade, establishes a regulatory environment for the digital economy, and has elements that resonate with SMEs, with informal traders, smallholder farmers, such as, for example, establishing a continental platform for payments. We now have a platform for interoperability of payments across the continent. It also, that is to say, the protocol, enables the movement of data across our economies, enabling young people in particular, to take advantage of commercial opportunities that the digital economy presents, such as data centers. Young Africans are at the cutting edge of digital innovation. And the data centers that all of us require by 2035 to power our AI transition, that innovation will have to be driven by young people. And again, here, Kenya is taking the lead, having one of the largest number of data centers in Africa, enabling young people to take advantage of the digital economy. And so governments across our country, diplomatic missions, we would call on them to look at this innovation and this model that is being introduced today as an opportunity for the entire continent, the private sector, SMEs, young entrepreneurs, to accelerate, to introduce models, tools, innovations that will accelerate intra-Africa trade, which the Principal Secretary reminded us remains very, very low. We have a number of challenges. We have overcome the challenge of lack of a regulatory framework. As I mentioned, in a few days' time, our heads of states will adopt the last remaining instruments. The last remaining instruments that should enable intra-Africa trade to take off. However, the challenge is not in the negotiating room. The challenge will be in enabling our SMEs, our informal market of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of United States dollars. Challenge Kenya is taking the lead, allowing all Africans to travel to Kenya visa-free. Kenya, Rwanda, Nigeria, and Ghana are some of the countries that have taken the lead to tackle this challenge. Movement of persons, particularly business persons, constrains the growth of our continent. We also have a significant challenge. The cost of transport and logistics is high. The cost of infrastructure, which African Development Bank estimates to be over $150 billion annually, that too is a constraint to intra-Africa trade, doubling by the year 2035. However, even with these challenges, even with the challenges that I've just mentioned, I believe that with the AfCFTA, as Prime Cabinet Secretary said, This is the only opportunity that our continent has. Establishing a common market, enabling trade, and young people to be at the fore of the future of our continent. The rules that have been adopted, they present to the market precisely the opposite of what the global economy, the fracture of the global economy is presenting to investors. Predictability, certainty of markets, and a rules-based system for enabling the private sector to resolve its disputes where they may arise in a commercial or trade context. And so, in this world, the fragmentation that we see, the disrupted supply chains globally, the fact that all African countries have been removed from AGOA, rendering them uncompetitive in that particular market, all of these factors combined should compel all of us as Africans to reflect quite deeply on where else is our market if it is not here on the continent. And so what Real Sources is saying, all in Africa, it tells me that we have no alternative. We have no alternative to succeed, and we do not have an alternative market as a continent. So we have to build a very, very strong domestic market that shall enable all of this production that is taking place across our continent to continue to drive and power the growth of our continent. By the year 2050, by the turn of the century, the youngest working force will be here on our continent. 1 in 4 people will be here. So we must position our continent to respond to that challenge of young people having opportunities. And so I wish to end on the note on which I started. And that is, when I went to Real Sources, I saw nothing but young people hungry for opportunities. We must be able to look back from 2050 that we delivered on that promise. And so this trade agreement that our heads of states are leading must deliver that promise and must be an instrument for delivery of that promise for the young people of our continent. And so I want to thank you very much, Philip, Dr. Mwangi, Prime Cabinet Secretary, for the partnership and this innovation that you are launching today, which I believe is a model for how we should take advantage of Africa's digital economy, leveraging on our commercial diplomacy, and bringing on board millions and millions of young Africans into the digital economy, so that, as Dr. Mwangi said, it is not about who's opening the door. It is rather about you being able to seize the opportunities that that door that is open presents to you. So I want to thank you very much, and I wish all of us very good luck with this initiative. Thank you.
Let's appreciate His Excellency Wamkele one more time. Thank you, Your Excellency. Your presence here, of course, really does speak to the commitment of the AfCFTA Secretariat to actually walk the talk. So thank you so much for being here with us this evening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now invite the architect of the platform that we're here to launch. Mr. Felix Chege is the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Real Sources Africa. Please sit. He's an entrepreneur and a technologist who refuses to accept that African problems cannot find African solutions. His founding observation was simple. African actors cannot find each other, cannot verify each other, and most unfortunately cannot trust each other. So he built a platform that does all three. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Felix Chege, who will also
Good afternoon, everyone. It's actually evening. Honor and pleasure to have all of you in this particular room. As His Excellency has the Secretary General has just said, he came to my office and found young people in the office. And it's true. I'm actually the oldest person in that particular but I'm only 2 years older than you. So basically, I'd say you're still young at heart. Real Sources Africa started off as a passion or as a dream. Trying to see how best can we connect this continent. We started off the journey in 20. Today I decided I will not do quite a number of presentations, but I'd like to talk and explain to you how we got where we are today. This is a market. This is how our SMEs transact. This is where millions and millions of our young entrepreneurs are. This is where they buy. This is where we looked at how can we empower these particular SMEs to be able to export products in any other African country. Statistics, without the hassle of compliance, aggregation, and consolidation. In 2024, towards the end, we came up with an initiative by the name Trade Connect. Our main goal with Trade Connect was trying to see how best can we export 1,000 containers over a period of 12 months. After 2025, we had already aggregated and shipped a total of 315 containers to different countries. Was the lessons we picked. One of the main lessons we picked was that there was a big challenge in demand intake. And the big gap was most Africans or most SMEs did not produce, or they produced to go to an export. But they didn't start by asking themselves, are we producing products that are actually with a whole container load of fresh milk, cooking oil, and we also went with powdered milk. Interestingly, we had not asked ourselves very basic questions. The demand in that particular market is not for fresh milk, but it is for powdered milk. But now we had a container load related to, and the amount of frustration that we got there would end up leading us to almost not going back to that market because of the losses that we had incurred. But the second main challenge was deal assurance. The credibility of, or the confidence that was required to give an SME the ability to pay, sit down and wait for their products to be delivered, but at the same time, give the confidence to manufacturers that I'll ship and trust that I'm going to get paid upon goods being delivered. But at the same time, there was another big challenge, execution, in that we have a a lot of people who understand or can talk about trade, but we have very few people who can actually execute a transaction. But more importantly, we realized that there was a big gap in sustainable market presence. And give a perfect example. At the moment in my country, we have a lot of China squares that have come up. China squares are a bad model. But we need to ask ourselves a very basic question. We've come into our markets with a retail and a wholesale and non-e-commerce infrastructure. And we ask ourselves a very basic question. If you walk into a retail store and you find 5 brands of a Chinese brand, and you really want to buy that particular product, does it mean you'll walk out empty-handed, or does it mean you'll collect what you find or what you found on the shelves? It's a no-brainer. You'll still walk out with what you found in those particular shelves. To bridge this gap, we did approach the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For the longest time, have been our centers of trust. We realized that any moment a trader crossed the border to try and seek a market or trying to seek or sourcing any kind of product, the first point they went to was an embassy. Let's ask ourselves why. Why go to an embassy? My hypothesis is because you trust the embassy to be the source of truth. We went to this particular embassy. We found something that looks like this. We realized that our embassies collect a lot of inquiries. Kenya is endowed with an average of 70 missions. 70 missions, which most of them have a trade officer. The main role of this trade officer is to create demand for Kenyan brands. But now, this is how their office looks like. And what you can see, these are basic inquiries that they've captured, but they have one bottleneck. They are not able to transmit these inquiries to the actual entities that require to respond back to these inquiries. Averagely, we collect 3,500 inquiries in a month. Our closure rate before was less than 1%. But why is the case? It's because if I'm a trade officer and you give me 3,500 inquiries, the first question I ask myself, where do I start? Now, when we talk about inter-Africa trade, sometimes people think only about commodities. But there's a bigger play to this. There are services. There is investment. There is financing. There is labor. But most importantly, there's a diplomatic which we call government relations. And we started a journey of trying to see how can we support our embassies, capture these inquiries digitally, validate these inquiries, but most importantly, support execution, but at the same time, create one gold mine called data. So that if I'm receiving 1,000 inquiries of coffee from Ethiopia, then it means that our policy work needs to target coffee because there is actual demand. But most importantly, the same structure will support us when we are building our SMEs, because we're telling our SMEs, invest in coffee because I got you. The Biashara Link portal was set up. In mid of 2025, we signed a partnership agreement with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the goal was very clear. Automate or digitize, but also track. The features that the Biashara Link portal brings on board are simple but unique. One, inquiry management. Capabilities to be able to track that inquiry all the way to execution. The second capability, ability to book your appointments or book your meetings with a trade officer or an ambassador at the comfort of your home. Sometimes back when I wanted to talk to a trade officer or an ambassador, I'd be busy going around all the ministry offices trying to seek for information, a phone number or a contact, so I make inquiry. But at the same time, with the new privacy policies, sometimes it's a bit difficult to just hand over a phone number to a stranger. But most importantly, how can we democratize access to a 2, a 3, or say a 15 or 30-minute call to be able to give me the ability to present my case and digital ecosystem that is able to support me in that particular structure. But most importantly, there are innovations that happen in your markets. If I'm deployed in Ethiopia, there is demand that our Kenyans can offtake. We bring opportunities in terms of tendering opportunities or support opportunities that sometimes we miss out. But the whole point, our trade officer did actually document, send this particular inquiry, or send this particular opportunity, but in real sense, we do not have access to these particular opportunities. I will not belabor much in this particular segment, but allow me to just say this. The main goal of the Biashara Link is as simple as capture, validate, and close. The output of that is something that looks like this. Collaboration. Bringing all stakeholders together. Being able to convert our inquiries to tangible deals. But allow me to veer off a little bit and explain to you how we do it. We realized that we had to build a 6-tiered execution cycle that starts with inquiry capture. After we capture the inquiries, we take them through a due diligence process and a KYC structuring, KYC process. And this is where we're just trying to validate the existence of the person making the inquiry or the business making this particular inquiry. And we do this through integrating with our local business registration agencies to validate. Or if it's an inquiry from an individual, we just do a bit of due diligence from your documents you're going to present. But we also look at your inquiry. If you're sourcing for a product, does it make sense? We take it through a structuring phase, which is our third stage. Structuring, we're trying to separate two things. We're trying to identify if or you purchase, and we present what we call either an information pack or a structured deal sheet. Forgive me to get a bit technical, but I'd like us to understand. Real Sources Africa has not built an e-commerce B2B marketplace. No, we are not. What you have built is an execution infrastructure. Our capability of being able to identify and separate people who are seeking for information and people who are ready to transact. And that is where the issue is. If you tell me today you're looking for maize, the first thing that clicks in my head is that you're ready to buy, right? But sometimes maybe you're not. Sometimes when those inquiries come in, they choke, or if we have the 3,500 inquiries, we end up choking 2 or 3 inquiries from legitimate players just because we were not able to separate people who are seeking for information and people who are ready to transact. We do that through 3 layers, an AI algorithm that supports that. We do that through what we call deal stewards. And Your Excellency, when you came to my office, the people you met were a profession called deal stewards. These are people who we are preparing and giving them skill sets on actual execution of transactions. Their main responsibility is to make sure that your inquiry of maize one has enough information that can give confidence to a supplier that you're ready to transact. They guide you through the entire process of sourcing, certification, documentation, and they actually also give you what you call market or demand analytics to support you in making an informed decision, or if we're able to transact, or if we're not. Once you're done with structuring, we go to another process, which is matchmaking, whereby we get the counterparties, still done digitally, and then you get the deal rooms. In the deal rooms is where negotiations will happen, contracting kicks in, and most importantly, we go to an execution layer, whereby my friend, Dr. James, I call him my father, Dr. James, comes in. His role is to make sure that that transaction layer or that particular inquiry that was converted to a deal, payments are sorted out through an escrow payment infrastructure that we've collaborated to set up. This is to make sure that each and every payment that is tagged to that particular inquiry, you can guarantee that each and every coin particular wallet and release of those funds are as per the terms that were agreed upon on the execution layer. From payments, financing also kicks in. We understand both players. So if financing is required, we were able to track the entire process from initiation all the way to where we are, and financing also kicks in. Finally, but not least, through the collaborative approach, our main goal is to build an infrastructure. This is not a Kenyan product only, but it is basically a product that we can all come in and build upon. We've done one part of this particular puzzle, but our end goal is having one particular ecosystem that can leverage on the trust and the credibility that has been built over time through our missions to be able to drive trade, investment, financing, labor, and most importantly, to be able to move this continent forward. I think we're all eager to go to the platform, right? Now, my call to action is simple. Excellencies, I'm inviting you to co-create this ecosystem with us. We cannot do this without you. We have to do this collaboratively. We're looking at your support, your skill set to make this a reality. Please, let's just get to the platform. Would like to do it from here because I'll invite His Excellency and I'll also invite our Prime Cabinet Secretary to make the first inquiry. I'd call it inquiry number 001. So, as you said today, yes, we're here to deliver economic diplomacy. Some of the features I earlier mentioned, yes, capability to submit an inquiry is one of the main features. The second key feature is ability to track your journey or to track every single inquiry that you've positioned in your entire ecosystem. That capability is the capability to facilitate, which is being able to get matched. Being able to get matched with the right partners for execution to kick in, but most importantly, the ability to close these particular inquiries. Still at the same time, we have the ability to book your meetings. Same capability to be able to discover opportunities that exist. And our opportunities are be it investment opportunities, tender opportunities that exist. But also, most importantly, capability to explore country profiles. There are so many of us who don't know the country profilings. Don't know maybe the GDP, the demand, the tourism opportunities that exist in particular markets, because commodities is one part of the puzzle. But we need to be able to explore our services, investments, and more or less. At the same time, capability to connect to the embassies, ability to plan delegations, ability to access diaspora services. And now, for the final one, which is our launch, I'd like to invite His Excellency Wamkele and maybe the Prime Cabinet Secretary to maybe come up, and maybe we can click the first, and we can create the first account in this particular platform. Yes.
Okay. So I can buy a car using Dr. Mwangi's credit card and then have it delivered to me.
Allow me to just write His Excellency. No. And I'll create a password. I'll give this password to you later.
Okay.
And maybe to launch your account.
Oh, I might have first. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's make it much more interesting. That's good. Take me back there. But still, let's make a first inquiry, right? So, can I click? You can use the screen. You can just use the top on the screen. Yes. You can submit an inquiry. Now, we can just select the ambitions, which say, now, this represents the country where you are from. Maybe click, say, South Africa, Senegal. And our goal is to have as many embassies as we can. So let's say we are routing the target embassy to Nigeria and South Africa. Okay? Then the type of inquiries we're supporting at the moment, the 6 categories of inquiries, we're supporting trade, investment, services, and financing, labor, government relations, or general inquiry. So let's just make an investment inquiry. Let's do a brief. Investment in a special so how much do you want to invest in our new economy zone?
$5 million.
Oh. So let's launch inquiry. So what happens after that particular process is you have to confirm your email address. I'll give you. We go to a review from the embassy perspective, and we get a response on the process form. Now, most importantly, the tracking of your inquiries. If you have to go to your account here and click My Inquiries, here came your inquiry. And what we're looking at is the inquiry goes under a review, and I mentioned a due diligence process, and upon successful matchmaking, it goes to the deal room for support of matchmaking and negotiation. Allow me to start and say that thank you so much for supporting us in the room, and thank you so much for launching our platform. We're looking forward to the $5 million investment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would not like to take much of the time, but what we're trying to develop today, or what we are showcasing today, is at the same time the ability to open an inquiry, track these particular inquiries, but most importantly, ability to match, make them the right counterparties. And still go back to my clarion call. We cannot do this alone. We require your support. We require your engagement, skill-wise, financially, technically, to move this stream forward. Thank you so much, and may God bless you. Now, most importantly, before I leave stage, we have had partners who've supported us to implement these softwares or to pilot it out practically. And I'd like to invite one of our trade officers, call him my friend, because this journey has been very crucial, and he's been one of our support structures, just trying to practically make this work. Please, Karibu.
Thank you very much, CEO, Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary, our visionary Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, our supportive Principal Secretary, industry players, guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be part of this auspicious occasion today on diplomacy, economic diplomacy. As a trade attaché, I wish to confirm that my office has actually improved, not what we were shown earlier on. I wish to confirm that. I know I speak on behalf of many trade attachés, economic attachés, and economic counselors in the room. And some of the challenges that we often face when we are undertaking our roles in the missions include limited access to real-time information, especially on demand and supply, linking buyers and suppliers, verifying information, and most importantly, trade delegation planning and matchmaking, which sits at the core of our mandate. Now, I've worked with this team before, and this is exactly what they are here to address, these main challenges. And of course, the diplomatic missions are here to also give them the credibility that they need. And as we were told, we also offer some trust, which they clearly need. So I've worked with the team before in areas of conducting due diligence, connecting businesses between Kenya and Ethiopia, and mapping out key products that show potential in terms of export, from beans, maize, and the recent one being non-woven bags, following the recent ban on plastic ban here in Ethiopia. So I know, Elizabeth, you've been getting my inquiries fast and furious, and they've been real time, I must say. So thank you very much, Elizabeth and team. Excellencies, today marks a very important event, which is also important and significant in terms of promoting and facilitating digital trade. Noting that